review you had on Shark Sandwich, which was merely a 2-word review, just said shit sandwich.
Where'd they print that? Where'd they print that?
That's not real, is it?
You can't print.
Hello, welcome to Gone to Shite. In this week's show, we're going to be talking about the excellent rockumentary that is Spinal Tap. I suppose for people who aren't familiar with Spinal Tap, just fuck off.
No excuse, really.
But yeah, but I suppose at the same point, they're as big as it is. It's not really like, I don't know. I suppose for a certain generation, it must be kind of like they wouldn't know or have ever heard of it. I don't know, but if you haven't heard of Spinal Tap, basically they're a fake rock band, but they're not really a fake rock band.
Not anymore.
I suppose it would have been one of the first
mockumentaries.
Yeah, mockumentaries done. It's the same people that would have been behind The Mighty Wind, Waiting for Government, Best in Show stuff. It's Harry Shearer, who's done a load of voices on The Simpsons. Michael McKean, who played Saul Goodman's brother in Better Call Saul. I'm thinking David for a second. And the guy behind it all, I can't remember his name.
Nigel Tufnell.
Yeah. So it's kind of a fake metal band that they took the piss out of it in the 80s, kind of came back in the 90s, came back again about 10 years ago, and I think they're going to be doing a sequel to it now. The mockumentary was directed by Rob Reiner, and
Otherwise known as
Rob Reiner?
Oh, Marty
Whelan?
No.
But it's like the documentary, if you haven't heard of it really, like you need to go and check it out. It's after being put into, like, you know, a thing of cultural significance, I think, by the American government, which is basically
into the National Library.
Yeah, National Library, yeah. But who was the other fella who came up with it there? Because Laura just has it over.
Oh, it's Christopher Guest.
Yeah, Christopher Guest. Sorry, I couldn't think of Christopher Guest's name.
Sorry, I thought you were taking the piss there that you couldn't remember his name.
No. But yeah, it's a fucking absolutely amazing, funny documentary. A lot of metal bands or rock bands that have seen it. It's like, I mean, it's just part of the vocabulary now of music.
It is, because an awful lot of musicians, if they're talking about their own time on the road, they'd always have we had a real Spinal Tap moment there, and it's just become an actual verb nearly at this stage.
A lot of the stuff that happened in it was based on things that happened with other bands, like out on tour as well. A lot of the documentary or the mockumentary, it was ad-libbed. So like before Curb Your Enthusiasm, you had, and like, I mean, this is what their films are well known for, is like a lot of ad-libbing. So I think there was, like, they recorded about 100 hours and brought it down. What I thought was really funny, which I didn't realise until I was looking up stuff about it, was that the guy who they had in as a cinematographer, he was after shooting a lot of real documentaries about musicians before, such as like the Rolling Stones. I think it was Gimme Shelter or something. Yeah. So he wasn't actually aware that it was...
He wasn't really in on the joke necessarily. That was a mockumentary. He actually thought it was a genuine music
and
band.
he was like, because he didn't think it was funny, but not that he was like offended by it, but just that he thought, like, this is actually the way it really is.
That was literally, I think he was like told afterwards that, well, like, this is, you know, a fake group and we're kind of doing it for comedy, and he was kind of like, well, that's every other rock band actually acts like that, so I didn't find it all that funny insofar as it wasn't out of the ordinary to him, like, you know.
Now, it's the thing as well that always gets me about Spinal Tap. The songs are actually really, really good. They're fantastic catchy. Live. So you got a bunch of actors, comedians that are also amazing musicians,
and
great
writers,
live performers,
and they can play. Yeah,
it's fucking bizarre. Like, it's really, really, really bizarre. I never understand how they're not held in higher esteem. Like, they are held in high esteem, like these people, but it's just like, if you see them live, like, obviously we've never seen them live, but just videos live, they're fucking brilliant. And you watch them playing the guitar, and it's like top
and they're
notch,
in character as well, playing the guitar. they always have it in mind where the camera is, what their characters will be doing, hamming it up, and there's always some stupid little visual gag going on while they're focusing on actually playing solos and singing songs and stuff, you know. I mean, part of their bits, I suppose, is always like, you know, stage effects going wrong. So it's like they get sort of, you know, suspended down and they get flown in on like high flying wires, but they don't actually get left down to the stage, so they're left dangling there while they're trying to play music, and they continue to play
like it's I don't know, for people who mightn't be musicians themselves, it's like
it's hard enough to play a guitar and sing at the same time, let alone act, and let alone remember, I've got a visual guy coming up here that I need to hit the marks for this, like, and I need to remember where the camera is, and I need to ham it up for the audience, you know.
But even like, it's just the guitar solos, the songs themselves are really, really good. The majority of it, like, there's a couple of duds, but like every band has its duds. But I think they could actually survive as a band.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of the songs are just so, and they're just so fucking funny. Like, I was listening back to the albums, because I haven't listened to it in fucking forever.
Years, yeah.
Just walking around with the dog the other day, and I was like laughing out loud to myself.
To yourself, like a psychopath.
Yeah. It's just impossible. It's so juvenile. So like Sex Farm and Big Bottom and so, but it's, or Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You. Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You.
Tonight.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, it's just they're so pitch perfect insofar as all of the songs they're parodying, they're actually doing it better than the songs they're parodying. Yeah. You can hear it in your head, you're kind of going, yeah, there's a little bit of that band, there's a little bit of that band, clearly they're sort of making reference to this band here or this song, but they're actually doing it in a super catchy way. Like, all the riffs are actually fairly interesting, but as the choruses and stuff, they have super catchy hooks, like, and you walk away from it with, you know, sort of lines stuck in your head. I suppose I think the one that keeps on getting stuck in my head, which I think is hilarious as well, because their big thing was, we're going to do something that nobody's ever done before. We're going to play an all bass. So, you know, it's like bass.
Big Bottom.
Plus bass, plus more bass. So, like, all of them in the band, they're all playing bass guitars, and it's just like, it sounds bananas. It actually sounds really cool and funky.
Yep.
But it's just every single one of them, there isn't one playing a guitar solo. They're all just playing bass lines, and it's just...
And when they do it live, they get like... I'm convinced on the one that we saw that it was Les Claypool was up with him, but they never introduced him or anything. But, you know, so they do...
Yeah, they've got Jarvis Cocker up when they play Glastonbury and stuff like that. And even to that point, I suppose, the likes of playing Glastonbury, like, what fucking fake band ever gets to play, like, you know, headliner set at Glastonbury kind of a thing?
Really?
But you know what I mean, they're specifically fake band, you know? But rather than just bands you don't like.
Yeah, it's just... it's hard to put into words how fucking good they are.
Well, that's how I suppose, like, I mean, you just mentioned at the start there, like, you know, anyone who hasn't heard of Spinal Tap, but I suppose go back and actually explain the whole concept of it.
Wait, I did.
No, you didn't really. You just kind of glossed over and just went straight to saying, they're brilliant, but they're brilliant.
What they cover in the documentary when they go through their past as well, it's they try, because they're meant to be like an English band, so they get into some of the stuff, I suppose, that would have been like the history of bands like the Stones and the Beatles, where they came from or Black Sabbath, where they came from like these working class backgrounds in England, and that they were best friends growing up, and then they had a band that was a bit like the Beatles in the 60s.
Almost like a boy band type thing.
Yeah, with that kind of music, and then they got a little bit heavier, and then in the 70s, I suppose, they were like prog rock, and then the 80s they turned into heavy metal. And like, it's all the different styles are done so well. They're pretty much, I think they would have been the progenitors of stuff like Flight of the Conchords, Death Clock, and Lonely Island, and like they ended up having like runs on SNL, like obviously not in character, but they've been on SNL in character. And like we were saying, Harry Shearer working on the Simpsons. Harry Shearer is my favourite. Yeah, I don't know that he plays the bass player in it, and there's just something. He's like a live Muppet. He looks like Animal. Anytime he's just there, and there's just something fucking really, really fun. And as well, that he's meant to be this, or at least he thinks he is, that he's like really fucking dapper and sophisticated and intellectual. And there was like in the live show that we were looking at him, where like for people that seen Guns N' Roses, Slash used to stick his cigarette at the end of his guitar.
Yeah, into the headstock basically.
Yeah, when he was playing, and like he does that but with a pipe.
I'm a gentleman.
But like the bit in the interlude where they had Nigel Tufnell playing his guitar solo, that so the others could have a break, where it's like Michael McKean was off like getting his legs waxed, and then he went off to like this restaurant to have like a fancy meal, but he was in a cape. And so it's just so perfectly stupid.
That's the thing, and it's just all these like visual gags, like, you know, sort of teeing up for obviously like your typical kind of jokes and all the rest. But it's just watching it. They are clearly ad-libbing a lot of it and all the rest, and it's just how they manage to hit pitch perfect, like copy some. No, I don't mean copy, but you know what I mean. You can see, I bet you they're thinking about this musician here or that musician there, kind of a thing, and you could definitely see it happening.
Oh, this like there's they did an album in the 90s called Break Like the Wind.
Yes,
and it's the difference because 10 years later, and the difference in the you can, for people that would have been around at the time, you can go, oh yeah, they're fucking trying to sound like this band or that band, or you know, where they sound like 90s, that there would have been a lot of bands that would have been around.
There's new old rock and sort of grungy type things, not, you know.
Oh, it would have been before that kind of kid, but like there's some stuff that sounds like George Michael when George Michael started trying to do rock songs, like even Fate and stuff, or with the Bee Gees when they tried to do it. There was just something where it was adding in more orchestral elements with it, but it's just spot on.
Yeah, like and of course you can't talk about Spinal Tap without like the kind of the folk metal kind of side of things as well. Like the big one that everyone knows them for is Stonehenge, and it nails that kind of prog rock kind of like, oh, it's a concept album, it's telling a story and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, it's for bands like Yes and all that in the 70s. It's and even fucking Phil Collins ended up becoming the singer. Genesis, yeah. But you know, it kind of mocks though, but it doesn't really mock him. It's the same as Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah, I don't think it's not mocking. It's like a real kind of a loving homage to those kind of bands, like, because clearly they are into that music themselves. You know, clearly they have an appreciation for and a love for that type of music. Because you couldn't write music like that without understanding it well and knowing all the nuances. So you have to be, you know, a fan and listen to it.
Well, that's I suppose. But like with Stonehenge, what it's probably most famous for is the whole bit where they drew up like a replica of Stonehenge to be made for the stage set, and
so it's real Iron Maiden type thing where they have like this big dramatic.
That had to be taking the piss out of Iron Maiden, but that they got like the people that were making up the things, they read it as inches instead of feet. So it's like 18 inches instead of 18 feet tall, and it comes down, they have to have like some little people dance around it to try and
but I know, and it's this big dramatic reveal where it's all like dry ice, and again it's suspended in from like fly wires from the ceiling, and this tiny little sort of handmade fucking Stonehenge model comes down, and the band they're obviously horrified, but I have to keep going with it. And then, as you said, you have some little people come out like just to try and have it in scale, dancing
and of course it goes into the whole thing then where they were like, I suppose it wasn't really just mocking John Lennon and Yoko Ono, because that seemed to become a bit of a trope in rock music, but it was
the trope of like the girlfriend comes along and has her ideas and ruins everything. So
like the lead singer, his girlfriend, she does, and she ends up becoming the manager because of that, and ruins things. And it's for anyone who's seen Anvil, it's so like Anvil was like, well, I suppose in the 2000s
it actually was Anvil. If you didn't know it was a real band, you would think, oh, here's another thing in the vein of Spinal Tap. It's another mockumentary.
So like it, even when they're doing the whole thing about the history of Anvil, for people who aren't familiar with Anvil, they were like one of the first thrash metal bands as well, and they could have been
one of the big four. One of the
and no one ever really understood why they. Well, you see, they're from Canada as well, so maybe they were outside of the whole kind of scene a bit. I don't, but a lot of people thought that they should have been up there with Metallica or Megadeth, but for some reason it just never happened for them. And these guys they're still playing nowadays, but they're
all still working their own jobs. They're like a janitor in a school, or they're caterers, or you know, they're sort of that kind of thing, and they're still. hoping for the dream. They're still like, yeah, we're still rockers, and we'll go out and we play these shows, and it ends up being some like community centre or something with 10 people.
There's lots of that they do a European tour, and of course the whole thing in Spinal Tap is that they're touring America on their new album,
trying to break America.
Which ends up like it's a Black Album cover that they do. This was in 82, like fucking nearly 10 years before the Black Album.
None more black, and they ended up kind of talking to Metallica as well when Metallica released the Black Album. They were kind of in character and all the rest, and they're like, oh, I see you're doing a Black Album there, lads, as we'll allow you to coast off our coattails kind of a thing, and you'll have some of the fame from our one.
They had to have known it. They had
to, of course.
But it's just the whole thing about why they did the black, because the album is called Smell the Glove, and it was basically a naked woman on her knees smelling some glove, and it was like Fran Drescher's character, who was like meant to be their publicist, was like, you cannot release that.
This is so degrading to women.
It's like the 80s, you can't get away with stuff like that now, and the whole thing with them going like, it's not sexist, it's sexy.
What's the difference?
What's the difference like? But it's a lot of, I think that's the charm of those people, and it's a charm with them in Anvil as well, that it's this, they're just like kids, they're idiots. It's the same like fucking Flight of the Conchords that they get right.
Yeah, they're just these lovable idiots kind of thing, where they're like, oh, this is so cool, why wouldn't this work? And it's like, it's the dream of a teenage boy kind of a thing. And
like that happens with a lot, for anyone who's seen some kind of monster with Metallica as well. Like Metallica, obviously they're a little bit more, but there's still a lot of teenage kind of things. I think for some of these people that got really, really big, they're really living in a bubble from when they're fucking like 16.
That's it.
With it, and there's an awful lot of stuff. Like you can see with like the Metallica did a year and a half with Metallica. It was like a 2-part documentary before Some Kind of Monster, which seems to have kind of gotten forgotten in the midst of Some Kind of Monster. And there's a lot of shit in that as well.
It looks exactly like Spinal Tap, There's a lot of stuff where they're hanging around in hotel rooms or forgetting gear, or like, talking to the camera and they say some really bizarre shit. Yeah. Like even, there's one that always stands out in my mind, like they're waiting at an airport or something like that, and there's a family standing behind Kirk Hammett, and the child is having a tantrum. He's like, that's why I always wear condoms. And it's just such a random weird thing, and you can picture one of the lads from Spinal Tap going on like that,
But I don't know, people always focus, because like the shit that happens in Some Kind of Monster, I suppose no band in their right mind would ever allow that to be,
to be out to the world, I suppose.
Whereas I think with a year and a half, they kind of thought that they were being cool, and they were like, some of it was being controlled, but like it
was kind of, I suppose it was a look behind the scenes, insofar as like you could see the frustration when they were recording, when some people were getting shitty because somebody wasn't showing up until 7:00 in the evening to play his drums part, and then people were getting shitty because everyone else is waiting around on them. So there was all that little bit of kind of in-band angst and all the rest, and there was I suppose the non-glamorous side of it, where you're just going to like burger joints at 12:00 to
even
catch your
the way
dinner.
That they fucking treated Jason Newsted in it. When you're like Jason Newsted, because he came from a place, as most people, not having much money, and then all of a sudden he was thrust into this whole Metallica fucking machine, and it was just, he was like robbing sandwiches, putting sandwiches in his pocket.
Not robbing, but just taking them from the buffet to eat rather than going out to pay to eat.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, cheap bastard and stuff. But he put them in his pockets to eat at home or eat when he was back, and he was very frugal.
Yeah.
And they were like the resentment towards him the whole way, that they were like, oh, he thinks he's someone, he thinks he's a star now that he's in Metallica, and it's like,
well, he is,
he is, yeah. Of course he does. Like, what do you want him to be doing? Going around fucking kind of like scraping that to eat a whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But like the way that they treat Kirk Hammett as well is fucking atrocious in it.
I know.
But people do wash over it a lot, and I don't think a lot of people have seen it, because it was like Some Kind of Monster, I suppose, came out at the time when there was DVDs. I don't think this is on DVD.
Well, it is if you buy it as part of like some of the box sets and stuff like that.
So you'd have to be a big fan.
Yeah, so you're going to be a Metallica fan anyway and know about it,
Whereas with that, it was just on video, and I remember it was kind of hard to get.
It's up on YouTube now.
Oh yeah.
So like there's tons of views on it now, but at the time, obviously. But it is like watching that. That's the thing, it's shot exactly like the Spinal Tap documentary, and I do think it's because they have the filmmaker is the right filmmaker for Spinal Tap, because he's just like, he's doing the thing where he's like focusing on somebody and then somebody says something and he pans around to him, but it has the effect of when somebody says something really stupid and he pans around, it's like the camera is the audience just going, what the fuck is
the
this
thing
idiot
with
just
them
said?
is they knew they didn't have much time to shoot it, so they spent quite a long time, I think a year prepping for it, so they came up with backstories and like even songs that they might have sung, so they were living in this world that they actually had made up anyway, that they could just fit into themselves.
Yeah, they knew their characters inside out, and they knew what their characters would say or how they'd react in a situation.
So they could ad-lib an awful lot, and it worked really, really well.
But it is, and they seem to have carried that on as well, because they've appeared in character numerous times since then, like giving interviews and stuff like that. And like they're clearly just like spitting stuff out, you know, randomly and off the cuff and all the rest, and it's still so fucking hilarious.
And they do, like, I had it on there this morning where it's they in the early 2000s, I think it was the early 2000s, they did a whole thing called Back from the Dead where they redid a lot of their songs, and I remember we were playing it on Rock Band, because remember they released it on Rock Band as well, which was a fucking brilliant idea at the time to do it, but they were doing like interviews, and they were doing hour-long interviews in character, and they were just coming up with just mad shit. Now it's the same as any ad-lib stuff. I think fucking maybe say it's 50-50 if you're really good like they are, but 50% if it's going to be dross. But if it's the other 50% is really good, you kind of... Yeah. Now, if we were to do ad-lib stuff, or normal people were to do like 90% to be shit.
99% to be shit, and you might get one gem or something like that. But that was the thing, they were so in their character, and they knew they inhabited their character so well that they would automatically just default to this whole thing. And, you know, just the ridiculous stuff that, like, I mean, obviously everyone knows to turn it up to 11 and all the rest. But they just kept on kind of coming up with this thing, you know, throughout the whole process of being interviewed. They'd just toss something random out there, and they'd be just baffled that people wouldn't understand their way of thinking, you know. But it's just the hilarity of that. You have this front man who thinks he's super deep, and it's just like you're about as deep as a puddle, like, you know. But
and that's a very because it's I think a lot of it seems to be gone. It's forgotten in times past. The kind of like the rock star thing is kind of gone, and like MTV is gone as well. But in the 80s and the 90s, when it was in full flow, you would have people like like Axl Rose or whatever. People were like, we need to get like these big interviews with him. Now Axl Rose, I suppose I will give him, in fairness, he never really did interviews where he was spouting about world politics and world economics and the way things should be.
Talking about Bono here, are we?
Oh, Bono was fucking but you had people like that, but you had a lot like fucking Peter Gabriel even, you know, but and there was all those kind of certain
they kind of feel like they were making pronouncements every time they opened their mouths. And Christopher Guest as Nigel Tufnell did feel a bit like that. He thought he was very insightful, and you're just like, oh man. Yeah,
but the press would be going after these people. Now, like, there was a guy I used to hang around with, and he was fucking exactly like that. He used to come out with stuff thinking that it was earth-shattering, kind of like, you know, that he was the first one to have these deep thoughts, and you're looking at him going, my God, he's just like a moron, you know.
Are you hearing yourself there?
And a lot of them are, but it's because they're so nice and innocent people, you know. It's like, they're, whereas if they were like fucking, which some of these guys were just fucking atrocious assholes, where you kind of go, oh my God, they're horrible and obnoxious, and just you want nothing to do with them in real life. So they got that balance really well. And like Christopher Guest's Nigel Tufnell was brilliant. Like when we were looking at the gig in the 90s, when he came the first song where they were playing with the Marshall amp guitar.
Yeah, that was it's just all these crazy little touches. Like, of course you'd have a Marshall amp guitar. Why has no one ever done this before?
And then he's like, it's not loud enough, so they put another stack that they
just add it on to the end of it, and suddenly the guitar is loud enough. But it's just all these stupid gags, and it's like, why has nobody ever done this before? Like, it's so obvious when you think about it, but it's so hilarious then when you get it right. Like, I
think you can't do it now. No. After them, like they did it so well. Anyone that'll do it now, you're just ripping off Spinal Tap. I think the only way that you could get away with it, or the way that people could get it, was with Dead Clock. Doing it as a cartoon, a 10-minute cartoon, but that's just so over the top. It's not really in that vein at all. But like Lonely Island.
Yeah, I mean, you have stuff like The Darkness kind of started off a little bit like that, a little bit parody, and then they kind of went a little bit serious. There's a few bands, I suppose, like that.
But I think The Darkness it's just they came across being parody. I don't think they really meant to be parody at their videos.
Yeah, they leaned into the whole kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of aspect of it, you know. And there's a few bands like that, really, I suppose. I'm trying to... I can't even think of them, but I think they played a download there.
Oh, God, I know who you're on about. Yeah, they did fucking... They were meant to be like a hair metal band.
Oh, yes. What are their names? Oh, my God.
Yeah, why can't I remember?
We'll come across it. I'll think of it. But go on anyway.
Oh, fuck, that's just...
I know, yeah, just after screwing up.
Because it is just... Oh, God, they had a death to all but metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes an exciting podcast.
Steel Panther?
Steel Panther, that's it, yeah. Steel Panther, I think, got the parody very, very good as well. They, were spot on with the 80s thing.
You see, and that's the thing as well, I suppose. Spinal Tap do it in a kind of an inoffensive way, I suppose, whereas I think Steel Panther are very much in the hair metal kind of
but they're spot on with the hair metal.
No, they are spot on, but the trouble is nowadays everyone gets offended so easily. There's not a lot of people are very offended when they've got like scantily clad women dancing on stage, and it's like, but this is exactly what a hair metal band does have. But of course today's kind of...
Well, there was the roast of Zakk Wylde, which there was some good, but they were probably the best on it, and they kind of played it up. They kept bringing this when they were talking about it and going, oh yeah, Zakk was great, but he'd get angry then and shout at you. Or that time that Zakk got my guitar and smashed it off the wall and called me a fool, and oh yeah, that was funny. You know, were they just like, they were obviously Zakk Wylde, they were trying to just make him out to be this like psychopath that kept bullying and harassing him and shouting and screaming at him with a drink problem. But you know, they're very, very good at doing some of the things. And
again, they're the same. I think they do have some of the same talents in interviews, because they do interviews obviously in character and stuff like that, and they do come out with some fucking clangers. They're just like, wow, that's awful.
They are very good live as well. Like even there is I think there was always like Loudboy or one of them had them playing live, but it was they fucking asked this kid to come up and play solo on the guitar, and he came up and he fucking nailed it, like
shredded it.
So it was just a reaction from the guitar player. I think they now at the same time, I don't really like their songs because I kind of hate parody fucking bands. I like Spinal Tap.
I like them. Probably doesn't help that they're parodying hair metal, which you're not a fan of anyway as well. So probably it's not in your wheelhouse really to enjoy or to like.
I don't know. I think it's just. I don't know. It's just a bit cringy, I think, sometimes with things. I don't know.
What separates why is Spinal Tap not cringy then?
Because they're like intellectual.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't think they're all that intellectual, sticking fucking cucumbers down their trousers.
Yeah, but I just think, but they're mocking the kind. I think there's some of the stuff that Steel Panther do where it's a bit fucking.
What, you think they actually believe they're leaning into being rock gods in their head?
You know, with their own song. Well, it's just that their own music isn't that good. I suppose is the thing. Whereas if it wasn't a parody, no one would listen to it. Whereas like with Spinal Tap, I think some of the songs would actually hold.
That's the thing is with Spinal Tap, if you heard nearly any of their songs on the radio, you wouldn't bat an eye. You just kind of go, oh yeah.
Until you listen to it.
But that's it. It was. I can just picture some people, if you did play it on the radio, they'd be kind of like listening along, not paying much attention, and then they just hear a line, they'd be like, what?
Yeah, well, there was that with on the Break Like the Wind. It was like Begin Again, and it was that kind of where it's all pianos and like, oh, life is getting you down, and then it gets near the end and it's like, oh, show the bastards.
But I do think they're very good at kind of like bullseye and nailing all of these tropes as well. Like, I mean, there's always a thing of like, you know, oh, sweet girl, you're only 16 kind of a thing, and all, you know, all of these kind of songs are nearly glorifying like getting with women that are way too young for you, and they have their song where they're singing that, oh, you're a bit too young for me, you still got all your baby teeth. You're just like, what? Oh my god.
Well, that was like, it's all coming out. Well, it's not all coming out because people were well aware of this shit, like for like when it was happening, but people just got away with it.
All these baby groupies and such, like 14-year-olds.
Like the whole thing was it your man from Aerosmith, Steve Tyler, that got like people. Oh no, was that Nikitas that got someone's parents that they fucking signed a thing for like this 14 or 15-year-old to go off with him, and then they just dumped her on the side of the road. There's something like it, but there's
been a lot of that. There's been an awful lot of like, you know, what you would I don't want to call them respected rock star, but I do mean respected rock stars, where they will be the part of the establishment, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure there were people that say, "Oh, well, that's the way it was," because there was this like groupie thing was a phenomenon where it was like these girls that would just basically just travel around sleeping with kind of rock stars. Now the thing is, it's not like they couldn't say no, and it's not like you look at a fucking 14-year-old and kind of, you know, it's. I don't know. I've never seen a 14-year-old and went, "Wow, she looks 37."
But are you sleeping with the 37-year-old groupie though either as well?
No, but you know, it's like that whole thing that Dave Chappelle did where he was going on about these parties where, whose fucking party was it? He was... I can't remember which famous person it was, but that they had 12-year-old boys at the party. Oh, yeah. And he was like, I don't know how many parties you've been to that are good, like, you know, that have the 12-year-old boys and they're eating Hubba Bubba, you know, where he was like, I just fucking walked out of the fucking thing, you know, but it's not like everyone was doing it. I think they'd like to try and position it as a thing to say it, so to try and
to kind
normalise
of minimise it a bit, I suppose. Because I mean, that's the thing, you have the likes of, there's always even people that would have been, say, very highly respected, the likes of David Bowie and all the rest of it. There's stuff lying around about everybody with, you know, sort of the younger groupies and the younger ladies and all the rest. But I thought it was, you know, sort of nice of Spinal Tap to do the old parody of it, like, you know, sort of point out how fucking ridiculous this whole thing is. It's not like cutesy that like, oh, you're so young and innocent. It's kind of like, oh gosh, this is terrifying. Like, you know? Or
when they had the thing where Rob Reiner on his own thing going, now 99% of your audience are males.
Yes, young males as well. Like, why is
why are you always like singing about sexy kind of
and stuffing cucumbers down your pants?
And what people might, there was years ago, there was like VH1 used to do a documentary series called Behind the Music. I think it might have came back there a while ago, but the one on Whitesnake with David Coverdale is fucking hilarious, because there's an awful lot of things in Spinal Tap I think they're taken from him. Now, David Coverdale used to sing for fucking Deep Purple as well before he went off and had his own separate bands. So I think he would have been in it around the time. So when they're talking about these, I have a funny feeling that some of the stuff is directed towards it, because he used to shove stuff down his tight trousers, and I remember seeing an interview with one of the guitarists and he was saying it was fucking bizarre because he had it in his head that it was like this sea of women,
and there might have been like 2 chicks in the whole audience,
out of thousands of people boys, and he was like, these teenage boys would be looking up kind of like in horror as he was like gyrating,
like, kind of snake down his trousers,
up into their faces. They were like, what the fuck
this is horrifying, oh no.
And David Coverdale is like, he's got the English accent and he's very much like, they have to be based on.
So I'm sure that he's been used as inspiration for
and like
it.
He's like kind of nice but dim, kind of thing.
Which is what a lot of them are as well. Do you know what I mean? They have this whole, I'm sure there would be there was that interview with Christopher Guest, like what was his original inspiration, and he was going on about when he was checking into a hotel, and this bassist and a tour manager of quite a well known band at the time, an English band, they were having this like 20-minute long argument about your man's gear. And I was like, where's your bass guitar? And he's like, I don't know, it's at the airport. And he's like, but we're at the hotel. And he's like, yeah, but my bass is at the airport. And he was just like, this is just the funniest shit I've ever heard. Like, but so there's, you know, it's absolutely land square in the middle of, you know, truth and reality, really. I suppose.
Well, like a lot of these guys, it doesn't happen so much anymore because like the music industry has changed so much. But like, you had these bands that they would have been touring a lot when they were like 14, 15, 16, and record companies would have saw and went, look, they're picking up a bit of a fucking let's basically make them massive. So they would have gotten taken on, everything would have been done for them. They wouldn't have realised that they were signing their fucking life away. They think that they're making loads, they're making absolutely no money at all, they're just being carted around, you know, what they're being. And there's this whole thing with record, and it still goes on, where they try and make people look like rock stars, because there's this whole thing, well, if they're going around limos, people will buy into the image and think that
they're rich rock stars, and whereas like rock star life.
Rock band pulls up on a fucking VW Beetle,
they're kind of like, what?
They mustn't have any money, they mightn't be big. So it's just psychological. So that's what they used to say, alright, let's put these guys on big fucking solo planes and solo things, more so for the image
kind of a thing,
And then they were living these lives. Of course, they'd go home, they'd have no fucking money at all.
Yeah, they're living in some fucking shitty little hovel back
they'd
home.
be in horrific debt to, like, you know, these record companies because they wouldn't realise that they were only getting loans of money. And then they were like, oh, well, look, you're only earning fucking 1p on every record.
Exactly.
That's there.
Oh, and by the way, you owe us all the money we fronted for the tour.
So, you know, you had a lot of these people that they kind of went, that's why a lot of those bands, they were like, fuck, I don't want to be staying at home. That they get in and the record labels were, look, you're doing well, knock out another record, you're going back out on tour. And they were like, fucking damn right, we're going out on tour.
Exactly, yeah, we're
life
getting
on
looked
the road was
after.
a lot better, yeah. But they had absolutely no concept of
what reality was, I don't think, or how normal people had to function in life. They always had, like, say, a tour manager or, like, roadies or whatever looking after stuff.
So these guys, they were fucking
perpetual childhood.
And perpetual childhood.
Arrested Development.
Yeah, I still like Pantera, but I loved Pantera when I was a teenager, and they had videos out called the Vulgar videos, and it was just them on tour acting dickheads, really, you know, just doing stupid shit, and then, like, they'd have, like, the music videos on it and then playing a couple of songs live, and like the Pantera toured, I think, at one point for fucking 3 years non-stop.
Yeah, not getting off the road at all.
That's horrendous, man. Like, fucking anyone just think if you had to tour or you had to travel over to Australia or something like that you're on a fucking plane for 12 and you're doing that constantly. That's
it, you're living out of a suitcase, basically. And it does, like, I mean, I had nowhere near an experience of that, but I did used to work a job where it was 8 days on, 8 days off, and I was living out of a fucking rucksack the whole time, because you get home and you're like, sure, I'm going to be gone in a couple of days, no point unpacking, I'll just wash my clothes and put them all straight back in my rucksack or my suitcase again. And you just get used to, like, oh, I'm sleeping in a different bed tonight. You wake up, oh, it's a different town again, I don't know where the fuck I am. You're eating, and you're eating shitty food because you've no access to kitchens or anything like that, so it's always like burgers and chips, and it's an unhealthy lifestyle. Like, you don't know.
That's when a lot of fucking rock stars end up dying of fucking heart attacks and stuff. It's like when people say lifestyle, it's not just the drinking, the drugs, it's the fucking food.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
and the lack of the lack of access to, like, exercise or regular sleep schedules even, or something like that, because you're up all hours of the night and then you come back and say, well, fuck it, I'll have a drink, like, because I'm too amped up to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden it's 4 o'clock the next afternoon and you're just getting up and going out to do it all over again and travel in between.
It's not like there's been,
like, it's like everyone thinks, oh, it's glamorous, but, like, fucking I would hate to have to live on a tour bus with, like, fucking 6 other smelly guys.
It's only if you're at the top that you're in a thing. Like, there was a series on YouTube called, I think it's like Bus Invaders, and it's a lot of, say, bands that you think that they'd be kind of like medium-sized bands.
Mid-tier,
yeah, and then you go and you see they're actually in, like, a van,
a Hiace or a fucking
with a trailer, and you're kind of like, fucking hell, I thought these bands were a lot bigger.
And they're actually proudly showing it off, going, oh, look, we've, one of us takes turns sleeping in the back while the other one drives, and it's kind of like, ugh.
Or even when they're on tour buses are they're fucking shitholes.
They're like, they're basically like fucking not even Winnebagos or anything like that, or camper vans. They're about that kind of level where you would
folding apart.
Yeah, you would comfortably fit 2 people, but you're expecting to fit like 7 people in the band.
That's why if you're in America, like, America's massive, and you're
so you're spending maybe 2 or 3 days on the road.
And, like, you can't even shit in the fucking. But it's just it's a tough life. Like, it's a really, really tough life. Until you make it to the top, and then
even then it's still relatively tough as well.
But I think you need, like, I mean, the original lead singer of Iron Maiden, famously, when they got big, he dropped out because he was like, I can't tour, I just can't do it, I can't fucking be going the whole time. It happens with some big stuff, where it's like, even despite the money and stuff, they're like, I can't fucking do this shit at all.
Especially if they have families or and started back home, they're just like, no, I'm not seeing my kids for like fucking 8 months out of the year. No.
It destroys people, like. That's kind of brought it out. We're talking about.
Well, no, I mean, and again, Spinal Tap kind of displays that a bit, where they are. Their whole kind of life is just like shitty corridors backstage at concerts and getting lost, and then sitting around in hotel rooms, and sort of a new girl in every city kind of a thing, and no actual intimacy or no actual support, and just this whole kind of slogging through. And
like, I mean, the thing is, you were the same as me. You were kind of like, working, I suppose, in the media in Ireland, and like, I mean, I was working with some music stuff. I used to work in festivals and then say on the off, like, bands coming in touring, you'd kind of like help out, either doing the sound or kind of rigging, or kind of like being a roadie for them, kind of like for just that kind of stuff. So you'd be working backstage on some of the things, and like the majority of them now, I have to say, were very nice and pleasant, but it always seemed to be that kind of nearly the smaller the star, the bigger the fucking ego. Asshole. They were. There was a few people that I met that they're massive pieces of shit, and you were just kind of like, you have no career, and you're not going to have a career fucking by the time you're finished this tour, because we have to burn on so many fucking bridges around. Like,
exactly, and it's going to hurt coming back down again when you have to pass all those people you shot on the way up.
Yeah, but it was one thing that I used to always got, like, there's a bit, we were laughing at it because you were saying that could nearly be me, where there was freaking out over the food on the rider. And it always used to amaze me that you'd have these people that they come in, and the food that they used to get given was great. Like, it was fucking really fancy sandwiches and all that. And, like, I mean, of course you kind of go, well, the poor, they fucking probably haven't eaten, like, you know,
that's it, that's going to be their dinner.
But it was like in some of these, like, and they were small venues in Ireland, like very small. And we're not.
Yeah, you're not talking, as I said, like
about 500 capacity or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, you're talking small.
And
bands.
like getting like really, really good, like on the riders, like really, really good food and really good drink, and you're like, they're probably getting fucking, the food and stuff is worth more than what they're probably getting paid.
Yeah, they're probably coming out with 50 quid each if they're lucky at the gig. Yeah, and probably the drink is probably actually worth more to them, I suppose.
But like we were saying when we were looking at it again, the whole bit where they get lost backstage, like we've worked and we've been in places like that. I've been in places like that up in Dublin, and there's one place down in Waterford as well that's very similar, where you could nearly get lost.
Yeah, you're just wandering through all these corridors and you go up the stairs and you come back down again, and somehow you're out behind the crowd. It's just you lose all sense of like fucking direction in these dark little tunnels backstage. I was like, shit, I passed this already.
And it is because it's dark.
Yeah.
Like people that, like, it's the thing, like I'm into electronic music and look at documentaries sometimes with electronic musicians, and even like say things about talking about gear, and they're always like, oh yeah, some kind of like gear things they get a bad review because they don't have lights on them. And now if you're not, and it's because it's like pitch black on stage.
So you're feeling around in the dark trying to figure out.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't know what I meant to be fucking pressing, because it's like completely.
Suddenly you press the wrong knob and you kill it.
Yeah. Dark, so that, you know, that's what you see a lot of times. People they'll use, what was it they used, the Orb used to use, with the fucking
Orbital, wasn't it?
Orbital,
they used
with the things.
like,
but like a lot of people now, they'll use gaming laptops and things because they light up.
Yeah, the keys will light up basically.
With it, but
having said that, you're talking about instruments. Some of the instruments they had on Spinal Tap are fucking brilliant. They had like sort of the double bass.
Oh yeah, the dollar bass. Yeah.
Well, they had that. They had those as well, but they started off with like, you know, there was a big thing in the 80s of like musicians showing off their musicianship by having like sort of a double necked guitar or something like that. That was basically like a fucking surfboard that you bring out. It's bad enough when it's a guitar, but when it's a fucking bass guitar and it's a double neck bass guitar, they're like monsters, and you know. And Harry Shearer is a smaller guy as well, so it just looked hilarious with him struggling out with this giant.
But even him in the bondage gear as well, because there was that whole thing that was coming around, I suppose, by Judas Priest, and that was like the metal look. Like it went more extreme then when thrash metal came out, you know, with the kind of like the spikes and leather jackets and stuff. Yeah,
the bullet bills and stuff. But yeah, it very much looked like the team from Dodgeball when they ended up in the S&M gear, and it was just
and again his size as well.
It is, because he looks real doty and cute, like, and then he's just wearing these weird straps and all the rest. But it always seems to be him that gets caught up in some fucking mishap on stage. Like they all emerge from these like pods, and his pod doesn't open, and he's trying to play bass inside it, and then he gets trapped in it, and he's still all, as I said, like him up, but he's all happy. He's like,
he's the perfect foil with stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the things is, well, just before we wrap it up, it's the thing that I didn't realise, they signed away the rights to Spinal Tap so they could get the film made, and they were battling for
just to get
30 years to get
their
the 40
characters
years
and
to
their
get their own
music
characters
back.
So I think that's why there's a new film coming out soon. I think that's probably why that they couldn't get, you know, but I think to try and maintain what little rights that they did have, they had to do stuff every couple of years to kind of
perform in you know, in persona or whatever.
Just to kind of, I suppose, prove
but honestly, if Spinal Tap came to tour into Ireland or something like that, I would be fucking front row centre.
I'd see him in a shot.
Because their 92 film that they had like in the Royal Albert Hall looked fucking brilliant. Hilarious.
But and like, I mean, I can't really think of anything else really to say about it.
Except go watch it if you haven't seen it.
Watch. Like, if you haven't seen it, go and look at Spinal Tap.
It's absolutely in the pop culture lexicon now.
Like, it's classic, and hopefully the new film will kind of bring it to another. But like, even just listen to the music on Spotify or whatever the fuck you're listening, because it is that hilarious. Good. But yeah, look, just cutting off there all of a sudden because I'm having a bit of a spinal tap moment myself here.
Yes.
But it's, yes, thank you very much for listening. Please share with your friends, let people know about us, because we're not really bothered with social media too much. So kind of like, you know, any help or any promotion from you guys to like
I
word
love
them
that.
out.
We're too lazy to do it.
No,
so
I don't
you
mean
do it.
word them out. Like if you like the show, just tell people, like,
Yeah.
you know, or keep listening.
Yeah.
But look, until next week, thank you very much. I will see you then.
Stonehenge.
Yeah.